Welcome to the High School Huddle. My name is Brandon Chapman. I'm joined by Ryan Aber. He's the lead prep writer for the Oklahoman. And the OSSAA named Ed Shakely as its new executive director today. Ryan, tell us a little bit about how that came about.
Well, it's a little bit of a surprise because in the whole situation when Danny Reynolds left, he wasn't even named the interim executive secretary. That went to Ed Robinson, who resigned shortly thereafter for unrelated reasons. But Ed Shakely is the guy that's been there the longest, and I think is most familiar with how things work in that office from the top down, and really impressed them through the interview process.
Is that kind of why you feel like they decided to stay within the organization?
Well, that was a little bit of a surprise to me because myself and I think a lot of people out there thought that maybe they would have to go outside the organization, even if maybe they thought that somebody internally was the best candidate just for appearance sake. But talking to Rocky Birchfield, the board president, he said they made a conscious decision to make sure that they got the best candidate for the OSSAA, whether it was an internal or an external candidate. And they're pretty comfortable that person is Ed Shakely.
Okay. Was there anything new going on with the Danny Reynolds situation?
Well, I talked to Rocky about that as well, and they're still wrapping up their investigation, which initially was going to be done in mid-April, and then they said at the end of April has sort of been delayed a little bit. But they think they're pretty close to nailing down exactly how much he's alleged to have misappropriated there. And they're also going through their rules and trying to figure out ways to make sure that this never happens again. And they've also got to go through some of their contracts and things like the Reebok ball contract that I've written about a little bit, and making sure that everything lines up to make sure that the OSSAA is in the best shape it can be moving forward.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and move on to some spring sports. What was the best game you saw last week? Obviously, that was the championships last week. What was the best game you saw?
Well, I think I'd have to say it was the Owasso-Putnam City North game on Thursday night up in Claremore. Owasso gets up, PC North comes back, takes the lead, and is able to pull off that upset against Owasso, which is basically like Jinx and Union all wrapped into one in baseball. And we're fortunate enough to advance. You had Garth Brooks and Trisha Yearwood sitting in the stands, which is something you don't see a whole lot of places. And just a great game from top to bottom. PC North had a sophomore pitcher that just completely dominated Owasso, and just the poise that he was able to go out there with was impressive. I think everything from when you wrap everything into one, that was my favorite game of the year. Plus, I love Claremore as a park.
Okay. Well, obviously there's a lot of great players in the spring and spring sports championships, and that's kind of when guys step up. Who was the best player you saw?
Well, there's two I look at. Austin Kirk, great pitcher for Owasso, didn't have as great consistently of time at the plate as probably I would have liked to have seen, but was dominant on the mound, especially in that championship game against Edmond Santa Fe. And another guy is JT Realmuto from Carl Albert, who we talk about every season. We talk about him in football, we talk about him in basketball a little bit, and certainly in baseball. Played great shortstop for them, then came down and shut down every one of their games in the state tournament. I think he earned 3 saves along the way, but just a dominant pitcher when he was in there.
All right, Ryan. Well, we appreciate your expertise. Continue to check newsok.com and the Oklahoman as we'll continue to bring the best high school coverage in the state.